May 7th, 1945, 1400 hours, Frankfurt, Germany. The war in Europe is over, has been over for 6 hours. Outside the commandeered mansion that serves as supreme headquarters, American soldiers are drinking champagne looted from German cellars. They're dancing in the streets, kissing French girls, firing their rifles into the air. The celebration will last for days. Inside, in a second-floor office with tall windows overlooking the city, the atmosphere is different. General George Smith Patton Jr. stands in front of a mahogany desk. He's 60 years old, tall, lean. His face is deeply lined from 4 years of war and 60 years of intensity. He wears a perfectly tailored uniform, with more decorations than most men earn in 3 lifetimes. 2 ivory-handled revolvers hang at his hips. Even now, even here, his hands aren't shaking, but they want to. He's holding a manila folder, 400 pages. The weight of it feels heavier than it should. Across the desk sits General Dwight David Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of Allied forces in Europe, the man who orchestrated D-Day, the man who held together an alliance of prima donnas, politicians, and generals with egos the size of armies, the man everyone is already discussing as a future president of the United States. Eisenhower is 54, looks older today. There are dark circles under his eyes. An ashtray on his desk overflows with cigarette butts. He hasn't slept properly in 72 hours. Nobody has. The room smells like coffee and tobacco, and the particular kind of exhaustion that comes after 4 years of total war finally ends. Patton slams the folder down on the desk. The sound echoes. Eisenhower looks at it, doesn't touch it. His face is carefully neutral, the face of a man who has learned to control every expression because cameras are always watching. Reporters are always listening. History is always recording. "Dwight," Patton says. His voice is rough. Southern accent worn smooth by decades of command, but still there underneath. "We're celebrating the wrong victory." Eisenhower's eyes flicker, just for a moment. Then the neutrality returns. "George, we beat the wrong enemy." The words hang in the air between them. Outside, someone fires a flare. Red light washes through the window. Celebration, victory, joy. In here, silence. Eisenhower reaches for the folder, opens it slowly. The first page is a summary, intelligence assessment, prepared by Patton's 3rd Army staff, cross-referenced with British intelligence, verified by agents on the ground. Soviet Army status, May 7th, 1945. Total casualties since 1941, 27 million. Combat effective divisions, exhausted. Supply lines, 2,000 miles, overextended. Morale, fragile. Soldiers want to go home. Anti-aircraft capability, minimal. Strategic bombing capability, none. Window of vulnerability, 6 to 8 weeks maximum. Eisenhower reads it once, then again. His face doesn't change, but his fingers tighten on the paper, just slightly. He knows what's coming next. Patton leans forward, both hands on the desk. The revolvers click softly against the wood. "We can beat them in 6 weeks." Eisenhower closes the folder, carefully, like it might explode. "George, Germany just surrendered. The American public is celebrating and making the biggest mistake in history. We just defeated Nazi Germany, the greatest military threat the world has ever seen. And we did it by allying with a worse one." Eisenhower stands, moves toward the glass, observes the celebration below, Americans and Russians embracing in the streets, toasting Stalin, toasting Roosevelt, toasting victory. He speaks without turning around. "The American people love Uncle Joe. The newspapers call the Red Army heroic liberators. Congress wants demobilization. The soldiers want to go home. And you want to start another war. I want to prevent one." Now Eisenhower turns. The afternoon sun is behind him. His face is in shadow. "Explain." Patton straightens. This is the moment he's been preparing for. Everything depends on the next 5 minutes. "I've spent the last month in Czechoslovakia, Poland, East Germany, everywhere the Red Army has occupied. I've seen what they're doing." He pulls photographs from his jacket, drops them on the desk one by one. Mass rape, Systematic. Every woman between 12 and 60. My intelligence officers estimate 100,000 in Berlin alone. Another photograph. Summary executions. Anyone suspected of anti-communist sympathies. No trials, no mercy. In Poland, they're shooting the same resistance fighters who spent 5 years fighting the Nazis. Another. They're dismantling entire factories, shipping them back to Russia. 3,000 industrial facilities. They're not liberating Eastern Europe, they're looting it. Eisenhower looks at the photographs. His jaw tightens.
I've seen the reports.
Then you know what's coming next. George, they're not going to leave. Any of it. Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. They're going to install puppet governments. They're going to execute anyone who objects. And they're going to do it with weapons we gave them. Trucks we shipped them. Food we sent them. Patton's voice is rising now, the southern accent getting thicker, the way it always does when he's passionate. We armed them to fight Hitler, and now they're going to use those arms to enslave half of Europe, unless we stop them. Now, while we can. Eisenhower returns to his desk, sits, reaches for his lucky strikes. The tobacco flares as he lights it. Smoke curls up toward the ceiling. You want to attack the Soviet Union? I want to push them back to their 1939 borders, before they consolidate, before they fortify, before they turn Eastern Europe into a prison.
With what army?
Congress is already demanding demobilization. The American people want their sons home. Patton opens the folder, flips to page 15, a detailed order of battle. We have 16 million men under arms. The Soviets have lost 27 million. We have complete air superiority. They have no strategic bombing capability. We have intact supply lines. Theirs stretch 2,000 miles through devastated territory. He flips to another page. We have 4 million German prisoners of war, experienced soldiers. They hate the Russians more than they hate us. Give them weapons, point them east. They'll fight. Eisenhower's cigarette stops halfway to his mouth. You want to rearm the Germans. I want to use every advantage we have while we still have them. Do you understand how that sounds? We just spent 4 years defeating Germany, the concentration camps, the Holocaust.
And you want to give them guns?
I want to give them a chance to fight the people they actually fear. Eisenhower stubs out his cigarette, hard. Ash scatters across the desk. This is politically impossible, completely, utterly impossible. Since when do politicians decide military strategy? Since always, George, that's how it works. We serve civilian leadership, not the other way around. Patton's hands are flat on the desk now, knuckles white. Then civilian leadership is going to condemn millions of people to slavery. And worse. The two men stare at each other. 20 years of friendship, 4 years of war, countless arguments. But this is different. They both know it. Eisenhower speaks quietly now. Even if you're right, even if everything you're saying is true, I can't do this. Truman won't authorize it. Congress won't fund it. The American people won't support it. And the media will crucify anyone who suggests it. So we do nothing. We go home. We rebuild. We hope for the best. Patton straightens. His voice is cold now. You know I'm right. Eisenhower doesn't answer immediately. When he does, his voice is tired. Yes, but you're not going to do anything about it. No. Patton picks up the folder, all 400 pages, holds it for a moment. This will define the next 50 years. You know that. I know. Millions will die. Millions more will live in tyranny, all because we didn't have the courage to act when we had the chance. You're thinking like a soldier, not a statesman. I understand killing enemies when they're weak. That's my job. That's what I'm good at. And right now, our enemy is weak. In 6 months, they won't be. In a year, they'll be strong. In 5 years, they'll have atomic weapons, and then it will be too late. Eisenhower stands again, walks around the desk, puts a hand on Patton's shoulder. I'm sorry. Patton looks at the hand, then at Eisenhower's face. No, you're not. He pulls away. You're not sorry, you're relieved, because saying no is easier than saying yes, because your political future is more important than their lives. That's not fair.
Nothing about this is fair.
Patton walks to the door, stops, turns back. In 10 years, when you're sitting in the White House, remember this conversation. Remember that you had a chance to prevent what's coming, and you chose not to. He leaves. The door closes quietly, more quietly than it should. Eisenhower stands alone in his office. The celebration outside is getting louder. Someone is singing. The crowd joins in. Victory songs. Joy. He looks down at the photographs on his desk. The women, the bodies, the burned factories. He sits, puts his head in his hands, just for a moment. Then he gathers the photographs, slides them into a drawer, locks it, out of sight. The way things become when they're too difficult to face.
April 20th, 1945. 2 weeks earlier. Pilsen, Czechoslovakia.
Patton's Third Army has just liberated the city. The German garrison surrendered without a fight. Smart. Patton's reputation preceded him. The Ghost Corps. The general who never stopped moving. The man the Germans feared more than any other Allied commander. He's standing in a town square. Grey stone buildings, cobblestones, bullet holes in the walls from 4 years of occupation. Czech civilians are gathering, cautious, not sure if it's safe to celebrate yet. An old man approaches, 70 maybe, white beard, wearing clothes that were nice once, before the war, before everything. He speaks in broken English. "General, thank you. Thank you for liberating us." Patton nods. He's heard this hundreds of times, in France, in Belgium, in Germany itself. The gratitude always sounds the same. But then the old man leans closer. His voice drops. "But please, do not let the Russians come here." Patton goes still.
What do you mean?
"We hear things from Poland, from East Germany. The Russians, they are worse than the Germans. Please, stay here. Protect us." Behind the old man, other Czechs are nodding, agreeing, fear in their eyes, real fear, the kind that comes from knowing what's coming. Patton's intelligence officer, Colonel Oscar Koch, is standing nearby. 50s, thin, glasses, the smartest man in Third Army, maybe in any army. "Sir," Koch says quietly, "we need to talk." They move away from the crowd, into a side street. The buildings provide cover from observation, from listening. Koch pulls out a folder, much thinner than the one Patton will give Eisenhower, but just as damning. Reports from our forward units. Everywhere the Red Army has been. It's systematic. He shows Patton a series of intelligence summaries, typed, clinical, the language trying to be professional about things that defy professionalism. Mass sexual violence. Estimates ranging from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. No discrimination by age. Soldiers operating in groups. Officers not intervening, sometimes participating. Looting. Everything not nailed down. Watches, jewelry, food, livestock, industrial equipment, entire factories disassembled and shipped east. Executions. Anyone associated with anti-communist resistance. Anyone who fought against the Soviets during the war. Anyone suspected of disloyalty. No trials. Soldiers simply disappear. Patton reads in silence. His face doesn't change. Never does when he's processing information. But Koch has worked with him for 3 years, knows him, can see the anger building. When Patton finally speaks, his voice is level, controlled. "How reliable is this?" "Very. Multiple sources. Some from our own liberated POWs who were in Soviet-controlled areas. They say it's worse than anything the Germans did to them." "That's saying something." "Yes, sir." Patton closes the folder, gazes through the window at the grey Czech sky. Clouds gathering, rain coming. "The Czechs are right to be afraid." "Yes, sir. And we're going to leave them to it." Koch doesn't answer, doesn't need to. They both know the political realities. Patton turns back to Koch. "Get me everything, every report, every witness statement, every photograph. I want documentation, complete documentation." "For what purpose, sir?" "Because someone needs to know, someone needs to remember, and when this all goes to hell, someone needs to be able to say, 'We tried to warn them.'" May 1st, 1945. East Germany. A displaced persons camp. Patton is here to inspect conditions. to ensure American soldiers are treating liberated prisoners properly, to show the flag, to be seen. But he's also here to talk to people, to hear things, to understand what's coming. The camp holds thousands, former concentration camp inmates, slave laborers, POWs from a dozen nations. They're free now, technically, but freedom is complicated when you have no home to return to, no family left alive, no country that wants you back. Among them are 200 American soldiers, former POWs, captured during the Battle of the Bulge, held in German camps, then overrun by the Red Army as it swept west. They should have been liberated, should have been celebrated, should have been sent home immediately. Instead, they're here, hollow-eyed, quiet, something broken in them. Patton gathers them in a warehouse, sits on a crate at their level, not standing above them, with them.
I need you to tell me what happened.
Silence at first. The men look at each other, uncertain, ashamed even, as if what happened to them was somehow their fault. Finally, a lieutenant speaks, maybe 25 years old, looks 40, blood on his torn uniform, Russian blood from the look of it. "Sir, the Soviets overran our camp in February. We thought we were saved. They were our allies. We were going home." He stops, swallows. "They took everything, watches, boots, wedding rings. If you protested, they hit you. If you fought back, they shot you. We saw them execute 3 guys for trying to keep their jackets." Another soldier, a sergeant, continues the story. "They put us in boxcars, said they were taking us to American lines. But we went east, deeper into Poland. No food, no water. Men died in the cars. They wouldn't let us remove the bodies." A third voice, a private, just a kid really, 19 years old maybe. "When we finally got to a camp, it was worse than the German one. The guards, they didn't see us as allies. They saw us as, I don't know, enemies, animals, less than animals." The lieutenant again. "Officers who complained disappeared. We'd hear shots in the night. Morning, they'd be gone. The Soviets said they escaped. We knew better." Patton listens, doesn't interrupt, doesn't take notes. He'll remember every word. He always does. When they're finished, he stands, looks at each of them. "You did nothing wrong. You survived. That's what matters. And I promise you this, your story will be heard. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will be heard." Outside the warehouse, Koch is waiting. "Sir, you have a meeting with Eisenhower in 2 hours. We need to leave." "In a minute." Patton lights a cigar. His one vice, allows himself 2 a day. This is his first. "Those men," he says, smoke drifting from his mouth, "they were treated worse by our allies than by our enemies."
Yes, sir.
"And we're supposed to pretend it didn't happen." "Yes, sir." "Because politics." "Yes, sir." Patton takes another drag. The cigar glows orange in the grey afternoon. 6 decades I've waited for a moment like this, Oscar. I've fought in 3 wars. I've read every military history ever written. I've studied Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon. And I've learned one thing, one fundamental truth. "What's that, sir?" "Defeat your enemy when he's weak. Not when he's strong. Not when he's recovered. Not when he's ready. When he's weak." He throws the cigar down, grinds it under his boot. "The Soviets are weak right now, weaker than they'll ever be again. This is our chance, our one chance, and we're not going to take it." "Sir," "Because we're cowards. Not military cowards, political cowards. We're afraid of what people will think, what the newspapers will say, what our political futures look like." He starts walking toward his jeep. Koch follows. "I'm going to tell Eisenhower. I'm going to show him everything, and he's going to say no, because that's what politicians do. They say no to hard truths." He climbs into the jeep. "But at least history will know I tried." The jeep drives off. Behind them, the camp, the liberated prisoners, the American soldiers with hollow eyes, all of them waiting, hoping, praying that someone will listen, that someone will act, that someone will save them. May 5th, 1945. Patton's headquarters, a chateau outside Frankfurt. 2 days before the meeting with Eisenhower, Patton is writing. He's been writing for 18 hours straight. No sleep. Coffee and cigarettes keeping him awake. 400 pages. Intelligence assessments, witness statements, photographs, strategic analysis, order of battle, logistics, political considerations. Every argument, every fact, every reason why action is necessary and why action must happen now. His chief of staff, General Hobart Gay, enters the office. They've been together since North Africa, 3 years. Gay knows when to speak and when to stay silent. Right now, he speaks. "George, you need to sleep. Sleep is for peacetime. That might arrive sooner than you think if you keep this pace." Patton looks up. His eyes are red, hands stained with ink, the weight of 60 years suddenly visible. "Do you believe in fate, Hap?" Gay considers the question, sits down across from Patton.
I believe in doing your duty.
"That's not what I asked." "I know." Patton leans back, the chair creaks. "I've believed in reincarnation my whole life. Past lives, future lives. This isn't my first war, won't be my last." He gestures at the papers scattered across his desk. "But this moment, right now, this is my purpose. This is why I'm here. I can see it, clear as day. We have one chance to prevent 50 years of tyranny. One moment, one decision." "And you think Eisenhower will make the wrong decision?" "I know he will." "Then why are you writing this?" Patton picks up a page. Strategic analysis of Soviet capabilities, numbers, facts, truth. "Because maybe he won't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll have the courage to do what's necessary." He sets it down again. "Or maybe this will gather dust in some archive. And 50 years from now, historians will read it and say, someone knew, someone tried to warn them, and they didn't listen." That's cold comfort. It's the only comfort available. Gay stands to leave, stops at the door. "For what it's worth, George, I think you're right. About all of it. Doesn't matter what you think, or what I think. Only matters what Eisenhower thinks. And if he says no?" Patton doesn't answer immediately. Outside, night is falling. The war is almost over. Victory is almost complete. Almost. "Then I keep fighting. My way. For as long as I can."
May 7th, 1945.
15:30 hours. 30 minutes after the meeting with Eisenhower, Patton is walking through Frankfurt. Alone. No aides, no guards, just a general in an occupied city. He shouldn't be doing this. It's dangerous. There are still die-hard Nazis hiding in the rubble, still desperate men with guns and nothing to lose. But he needs to think, needs to process, needs to understand what just happened. The city is celebrating, Americans and Russians drinking together, toasting Stalin and Truman and Churchill, brothers in arms, allies forever. Patton watches them, knows what's coming, knows that in a year, maybe less, these same Russians will be enemies. These same Americans will be fighting and dying to contain Soviet expansion, all because no one had the courage to act today. He stops at a destroyed church, just walls remaining. The roof is gone, stained glass shattered, pews burned. Inside, sitting on a piece of rubble, is a German woman. Old, 60 maybe, black dress. The dress of widows. She looks up at him. No fear, just exhaustion. In broken English, "You are American general?" "Yes." "You beat the Germans?" "Yes." "Now the Russians come." Patton sits beside her, on the rubble, in the destroyed church, a general and a widow. "Yes." "This is worse." He doesn't answer, doesn't need to. They both know. She stands, slowly, bones aching from cold and hunger and 4 years of war. "My husband died fighting the Russians. 1943, Stalingrad. He knew they would come here. One day. He knew." She looks at Patton directly. "You cannot stop them, can you?" "I tried. But they said no." "Yes." "Then we are lost." She walks away, into the ruins, disappears around a corner. Gone. Patton sits alone in the destroyed church. The celebration outside gets louder. Victory, joy, peace. He knows the truth. The war isn't over. It's just beginning. And this time, They're going to lose. May 10th, 1945. The Pentagon, Washington, D.C. The building is barely 3 years old, still smells like fresh concrete and ambition. 5 sides, 5 floors, 5 ring corridors, built to coordinate a global war, now being used to manage a global peace. In a secure briefing room on the 3rd floor, Secretary of War Henry Stimson sits across from President Harry S. Truman. Between them on the table is Patton's 400-page report, flown from Frankfurt 2 days ago, marked Eyes Only. Top secret classification. Neither man has slept much since reading it. Truman is 60 years old, been president for less than a month. Franklin Roosevelt died April 12th. Heart failure. Left Truman to manage the end of a war he barely understood and the beginning of a peace he understands even less. He's a former artillery captain from World War I, knows combat, knows soldiers, knows enough to recognize truth when he sees it. That's the problem. Stimson is 77, Republican, lawyer.
Served in government since before Truman was born.
Wise enough to see the future, old enough to know he won't live to see how it ends. Mr. President, Stimson says, his voice careful, measured. Militarily, General Patton's assessment is sound. The Soviets are vulnerable. We have a brief window, perhaps 6 weeks, perhaps less. Truman is reading a specific page. Soviet atrocities in Poland. The clinical language can't hide the horror underneath. And you believe this? The rape? The executions? All of it? I've cross-referenced with British intelligence, OSS reports, liberated prisoner statements. It's all accurate, perhaps conservative. Truman slides the folder across the desk, unable to look at it anymore. Then Stalin lied to Roosevelt, to all of us. The promises about free elections, democratic governments, self-determination. Yes, sir. Son of a bitch. Stimson says nothing, lets the president process. This is how you handle powerful men. Give them space to think, to feel, to arrive at conclusions themselves. Truman stands, moves toward the observation point. Outside, Washington is celebrating. The war in Europe is over. The Pacific War is winding down. Boys will come home. Families will reunite. Life will return to normal. Normal. As if anything will ever be normal again. What does Marshall say? General George Marshall, Chief of Staff, the man who built the American military machine, Eisenhower's mentor, Patton's boss, the most respected soldier in America. General Marshall believes Patton is correct in his assessment, but incorrect in his proposed solution. He recommends diplomatic engagement, building international frameworks, the United Nations. Talking. Yes, sir. While Stalin occupies half of Europe. Yes, sir. Truman turns from the observation point. His face is set. The face of a man making a decision he knows is wrong, but doesn't see an alternative. What Patton is proposing, attacking the Soviet Union, rearming German soldiers, it's madness, complete madness. We just fought 4 years to defeat Germany, the concentration camps, the Holocaust, and he wants to give them guns and point them east? The logic is sound, sir. German soldiers do hate the Soviets more than they hate us. I don't care if the logic is sound. It's morally impossible, politically impossible. The American people would never accept it, Congress would never fund it, and the press would destroy anyone who suggested it. Stimson nods slowly, expected this, understands it, doesn't like it but understands it. What should I tell General Eisenhower? Truman sits back down, tired, so tired. 1 month in office and already making decisions that will echo for generations. Tell him to control his generals. Tell him Patton needs to keep his opinions private. And tell him if Patton continues making these kinds of statements, I'll have no choice but to remove him. Sir, with respect, Patton may be right. He probably is right. That's not the point. The point is, I'm the president. Roosevelt promised Stalin cooperation. I keep Roosevelt's promises. That's how democracy works. We don't change course every time leadership changes. He opens the folder one more time, looks at the photographs, the women, the bodies, the evidence of what's coming. God help us. We're making a terrible mistake, but we're making it anyway. May 15th, 1945. London. Churchill's bunker beneath Whitehall. Winston Spencer Churchill is 70 years old, Prime Minister since 1940, the man who stood alone against Hitler when everyone else wanted appeasement, the man who rallied Britain through the Blitz, through Dunkirk, through the darkest days. He's sitting in the same underground room where he planned D-Day, where he coordinated with Roosevelt, where he made decisions that saved civilization. Now he's planning how to save it again. Across from him sits General Hastings Ismay, Chief Military Assistant, been with Churchill through everything, knows how he thinks, how he works, when he's serious and when he's performing. Right now he's serious. Ismay, I want you to task the Chiefs of Staff with a study. Code name Operation Unthinkable. Sir? Churchill lights a cigar, his fifth today. Doctor says to cut back. Churchill says the doctor can go to hell. I want a detailed military plan for an Allied offensive against the Soviet Union. Objective: drive them back to their 1939 borders. Free Poland. Free Eastern Europe. End this before it begins. Ismay goes very still. Sir, we've just finished fighting alongside the Soviets. I know. The British people are exhausted. We've lost 400,000 men. The economy is shattered. We're bankrupt. I know. An attack on the Soviets would be seen as madness, betrayal, political suicide. Churchill blows smoke toward the ceiling, watches it curl and drift. Everything I've done for the last 5 years was called madness. Standing alone against Hitler, refusing peace terms, fighting on, and I was right every time. He leans forward, the cigar glowing in the dim light. I've been warning about the Bolsheviks since 1917, since the revolution. Everyone said I was overreacting, being dramatic. Winston and his anti-communist obsession. Well, now they're in Warsaw, in Prague, in Berlin, and they're not leaving. The Americans won't support it. I know. I've already sent the proposal to Truman. He rejected it within 48 hours, didn't even pretend to consider it. Then why this study? Churchill stands, paces. The bunker feels smaller every day, more like a tomb, less like a command center. Because someone needs to know it was possible, that we had a chance, that military leaders saw clearly even if political leaders chose blindness. He stops, turns to Ismay. And because an American general named Patton is saying the exact same things I'm thinking. I want to know if he's right, if his 6-week window is real, if we could actually do this. And if we could, then history will record that we chose not to, that we had the opportunity to prevent 40 years of tyranny and decided politics was more important than freedom. Ismay makes notes, knows better than to argue when Churchill is in this mood. I'll have the chiefs begin work immediately. Good. And Ismay, keep it quiet. If word leaks that Britain is planning to attack the Soviet Union, it will cause a diplomatic catastrophe. Understood, sir. After Ismay leaves, Churchill sits alone in his bunker. The maps on the walls show Allied positions, Soviet positions, the new reality of Europe. Divided, occupied, lost. He picks up a pen, begins writing a telegram. Personal, to Truman, one last attempt. An iron curtain is drawn down upon their front. We do not know what is going on behind it. He reads the phrase back to himself. An iron curtain. Yes, that's exactly what it is. A barrier, a wall, a division that will last for decades. He signs the telegram, sends it, knows Truman won't listen, but at least he tried. June 8th, 1945, Frankfurt, Patton's headquarters. The intelligence reports have been coming in for a month now, worse every day. Each new document, another piece of evidence that everything Patton predicted is coming true. Colonel Koch enters Patton's office without knocking. They're past formalities, past protocol, in the middle of something too important for military courtesy. Sir, you need to see this. He drops a folder on the desk. intercepts from Soviet communications. The Red Army isn't even trying to hide what they're doing anymore. Why would they? Who's going to stop them? Patton reads. His face doesn't change, never does when he's reading intelligence, but Koch can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw sets. Poland, the 16 leaders of the Home Army, men who fought the Germans for 5 years, led the Warsaw Uprising, saved Allied pilots, died by the thousands for freedom, arrested by the NKVD, Soviet secret police, taken to Moscow, show trial scheduled.
Charges: collaboration with Germans, crimes against the Soviet people. Everyone knows they're innocent. Everyone knows they'll be executed anyway. When? Patton asks. The trial starts June 18th. Verdict is already decided. Patton closes the folder, stands, moves toward the glass. Outside, American soldiers are playing baseball. Someone brought equipment from home, trying to make this feel normal, like occupation is just another day at the office. We're letting this happen. Sir, we liberated Poland. We promised them freedom. We told them they were fighting for democracy and self-determination and all the things we say we believe in. And now we're watching while Stalin executes their leaders, and we're doing nothing. Koch doesn't respond. What is there to say? Patton turns from the observation point. Decision made. I'm giving a press conference. Tomorrow. I'm going to tell them what's happening in Eastern Europe. All of it. The rape, the executions, the betrayal. Everything. Sir, that's a very bad idea. I don't care. Eisenhower will relieve you. Let him. Your career. My career? Patton's voice rises now, the control slipping. My career. Koch, there are women being raped by the thousands, soldiers who fought for freedom being executed, entire nations being enslaved, and you're worried about my career? He sits back down, suddenly tired, the weight of 60 years visible again. 6 decades I've served, led armies, won battles, got my name in the history books. If that's all I accomplish, it's enough. But if I stay silent now, if I watch this happen and say nothing, then nothing else matters. Koch sits across from him. They've been through too much together. North Africa, Sicily, France, Germany. 3 years of war. 3 years of watching Patton be right when everyone else was wrong. You won't change anything. Truman has made his decision. So has Eisenhower. So has Churchill, even though he agrees with you. The politics are too strong. Then I'll go down fighting. You'll go down alone. Patton looks at him, really looks at him, sees the concern, the loyalty, the friendship underneath the military ranks. I've been alone before. June 15th, 1945, Frankfurt. Press conference. 50 reporters, American, British, French, even a few Soviet journalists, though they won't print anything Patton says, not the truth anyway. Patton stands at a podium, no notes, never uses notes. Everything he wants to say is burned into his memory. The room is hot, summer in Germany, no air conditioning, windows open, the smell of cigarette smoke and sweat and anticipation. Gentlemen, Patton begins. His voice carries, always has, developed it over 40 years of command. I've asked you here to discuss the situation in Eastern Europe. Notebooks open, pens ready. This is news, real news, not the sanitized version from official briefings. For the past 2 months I've been receiving reports from my intelligence officers, from liberated prisoners, from civilian witnesses. Reports about Soviet conduct in occupied territories. He pauses, lets that sink in. Soviet conduct, not German conduct, not the Nazis, the Soviets, our allies. These reports document systematic sexual violence against civilian populations, mass executions of political opponents, forced deportations, appropriation of industrial assets, and the establishment of authoritarian governments in direct violation of agreements made at Yalta. A reporter raises his hand. Drew Pearson, columnist, millions of readers, close ties to Washington, no friend of Patton. General, are you accusing the Soviet Union of war crimes? I'm reporting what my intelligence officers have documented. You can draw your own conclusions. The Soviet Union is our ally. They lost 27 million people defeating Germany. Are you suggesting they're now our enemy?
Patton meets his eyes, doesn't blink.
I'm suggesting we need to be clear-eyed about what's happening in Eastern Europe. The Polish Home Army leaders, men who fought the Germans for 5 years, they're in Moscow right now, facing show trials, charged with collaboration. Everyone knows they're innocent. Everyone knows they'll be executed anyway, and we're doing nothing. Another reporter, British, more sympathetic but still skeptical. What would you have us do, General? Start another war? Against the nation that helped us defeat Hitler? I would have us honor our commitments. We promised Poland freedom. We promised Czechoslovakia self-determination. We promised that this war was being fought for democracy and liberty. Those weren't empty words. At least, they shouldn't be. Pearson again, voice sharp, accusatory. General Patton, there are rumors you've proposed military action against the Soviet Union, that you want to rearm German soldiers. Is that true? Every sound dies. This is the moment. The question everyone wanted to ask, but nobody had the courage to ask directly. Patton could deny it, could deflect, could say it's classified, could protect himself. He doesn't. I've proposed that we need to be realistic about Soviet intentions, that we need to maintain military readiness. And yes, I've suggested that German prisoners of war who are willing to fight against Soviet expansion should be considered as potential allies. The room explodes. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing. This is the headline. This is the scandal. Nazi sympathizer, warmonger, madman. Patton lets them shout, waits for quiet. When it doesn't come, he simply walks out. The damage is done. June 16, 1945. Washington, D.C., Truman's office. The president is reading the morning newspapers. Every single one has the same story, same headlines, same outrage. Patton wants to rearm. Nazis general proposes attack on Soviet ally. War hero or warmonger? Truman's Secretary of State, Edward Stettinius, sits across from him, nervous. This is a diplomatic disaster. Relations with the Soviets are already strained. Now this. Mr. President, we need to issue a statement, distancing ourselves from General Patton's remarks, reaffirming our commitment to Soviet-American cooperation. Truman doesn't look up from the papers. What does Eisenhower say? General Eisenhower is preparing to relieve General Patton of command. Good. Sir, with respect, Patton is the most famous American general. The public loves him. Relieving him will be controversial. Now Truman looks up, his eyes hard. This is the look that sent him from Missouri farm boy to President of the United States. The look that says he's made a decision and nothing will change it. I don't care if the public loves him. I don't care if he won the war single-handedly. He doesn't make foreign policy. I do. And right now, my foreign policy is cooperation with the Soviet Union. If Patton can't support that, he can find another job. Yes, sir. Draft a statement. Make it clear that General Patton's views are his own, that they don't reflect the position of the United States government, that we value our alliance with the Soviet Union, that we're committed to peaceful cooperation. Stettinius makes notes, knows what's expected, knows how to phrase things diplomatically. And Eisenhower? Tell him to handle Patton. Whatever it takes, I don't want to hear about this again. June 20th, 1945. Frankfurt, Eisenhower's office. The same room where Patton presented his report 6 weeks ago. Same desk, same windows, same view of a city celebrating victory. But everything feels different now. Eisenhower sits behind the desk. Patton stands in front of it. The physical positions mirror their relationship, superior and subordinate, commander and commanded. But the emotional positions are reversed. Patton has the moral high ground. Eisenhower has the political necessity. Neither position is comfortable. George, you have to stop. Patton doesn't respond, stands at attention, formal, cold. The friendship is gone, burned away by 6 weeks of disagreement and disappointment. The press conference, the statements about the Soviets, the proposal to rearm Germans. You're making this impossible. Still no response. Eisenhower stands, walks around the desk, trying to reach the man underneath the general. We've been friends for 20 years.
West Point, Mexico, 2 world wars. I've protected you, saved your career, multiple times. The slapping incident in Sicily, the speeches, the controversies, every time I stood by you. Now Patton speaks, voice flat, empty of emotion. I never asked you to protect me. No, you just assumed I would, because that's what friends do. But I can't protect you from this. Truman wants you gone. Marshall wants you silenced. The press wants your head. And frankly, George, you're making it very easy for them. By telling the truth? By being tone deaf. You can't propose attacking the Soviet Union. You can't suggest rearming Germans. Not now. Not ever. It doesn't matter if you're right. What matters is what's possible. Patton's eyes meet Eisenhower's. Cold, hard, unforgiving. What matters is what's right. That's a luxury. We don't have luxuries. We have responsibilities. To our soldiers, to our country, to the alliance we built. The alliance is a lie. Maybe. Probably. But it's the lie that won the war. It's the lie that defeated Hitler. And it's the lie we have to maintain, because the alternative is worse. The alternative is freedom for Eastern Europe. Eisenhower turns away. Can't meet those eyes anymore. Can't face that judgment. I can't give you that. I can't give them that. I don't have the power. Truman doesn't have the power. Maybe nobody does. Churchill does. The British Chiefs of Staff completed Operation Unthinkable. Their assessment says it's feasible. Difficult but feasible. If we acted now. Together. Eisenhower goes very still. How does Patton know about Unthinkable? That was supposed to be classified. Top secret. Who told you about that? Churchill. Sent me a personal telegram. Wanted me to know I wasn't alone. That someone else saw what I was seeing. And what did you tell him? That the British Empire is dying. That America is the only country with the strength to act. And that America is choosing not to. The words hang between them. Accusation, truth, judgment. Eisenhower returns to his desk. Sits. Suddenly looks older than 54. Looks tired. Looks like a man carrying weight he never wanted. George, I need you to stop making public statements about the Soviets. I need you to stop proposing military action. I need you to be quiet. Or what? Or I'll have to relieve you of command. Silence. Outside, a church bell rings. 6 o'clock. Time for dinner. Time for rest. Time for normal things. Nothing about this is normal. You won't, Patton says finally. You don't have the courage. Don't push me. I'm not pushing. I'm stating fact. You've spent 4 years building your reputation. Supreme Commander. The general who won the war. Future president. You won't risk that by having a public fight with the most popular general in the army. Eisenhower's face hardens. Try me. They stare at each other. 20 years of friendship. 4 years of war. Countless battles fought side by side. All of it coming down to this moment. Patton breaks first. Not because he's weak, because he's tired. I'll be quiet, he says, for now. Thank you. But I won't stop gathering evidence. I won't stop documenting what's happening. And when this all goes to hell, when everything I predicted comes true, I want people to know that someone tried to warn them. He walks to the door, stops, turns back. You're going to be president, Ike, probably. You'll sit in the White House, make decisions, shape history. And every day, you'll remember this conversation. Every day, you'll know you had a chance to do the right thing and chose the political thing instead. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but it's true. He leaves. The door closes. Softer this time, like resignation instead of anger. Eisenhower sits alone in his office. The weight of command feels heavier than it did an hour ago. Heavier than it did at D-Day. Heavier than it's ever felt. He knows Patton is right. He knows he's choosing wrong. He knows history will judge him. But he's choosing anyway. Because that's what leaders do. They make impossible choices. They accept terrible trade-offs. They sacrifice the perfect for the possible. Even when the possible means millions will suffer. Even when the perfect was right there, within reach, for 6 weeks. until it wasn't. September 22nd, 1945. Bad Tolz, Germany. 3rd Army Headquarters. 4 months since the war ended. 4 months since Patton warned Eisenhower. 4 months of watching everything he predicted begin to come true. Poland. The 16 Home Army leaders were convicted in Moscow. Show trial. Predetermined verdict. 3 executed immediately. The rest sent to gulags. Stalin promised free elections. The elections never came. Czechoslovakia. Soviet forces occupying the eastern territories. Communist Party growing stronger. Democratic government growing weaker. Nobody believes the Soviets will ever leave. East Germany. Complete occupation. Factories still being dismantled. Shipped to Russia. Women still being violated. Resistance fighters still disappearing in the night. Everything Patton said would happen is happening. And nobody is doing anything about it. Patton is sitting in his office. 3rd Army reduced to occupation duty. No more combat. No more advancement. Just maintaining order in a defeated nation. Babysitting. The greatest tank commander in history reduced to glorified policeman. It's eating at him. His aide, Captain Richard Jensen, enters. 26 years old. Yale graduate. Enlisted after Pearl Harbor. Smart enough to recognize that being Patton's aide is both an honor and a curse. Sir, you have a press conference scheduled for 1400 hours. Denazification policy. Patton looks up from the report he's reading. Another document about Soviet atrocities. More evidence nobody wants to see. Denazification. The stupidest policy ever devised by people who've never governed anything. Sir, you should probably not say that to the reporters. Why not? It's true. Jensen sits down, uninvited, breaking protocol. But they're past that now, past formality, in the middle of something that feels like the end. Sir, with respect, you're already on thin ice with Washington. The statements about the Soviets. The proposal to rearm Germans. If you start criticizing Allied policy is destroying Germany. We removed every Nazi Party member from every position of authority. Judges, teachers, engineers, administrators, anyone who joined the party. And you know what we got? Chaos. Because most of them joined out of fear, not ideology. They joined because you had to join to keep your job, to feed your family, to survive. The American people don't want to hear that we're employing Nazis. The American people are 3,000 miles away. They don't see what I see. They don't know that we need these people if we're going to rebuild Germany, if we're going to create a stable country that can resist Soviet pressure. Jensen looks uncomfortable. He knows where this is going, knows Patton is working himself up to saying something he can't take back. Sir, please, be careful what you say today. Eisenhower is watching. Truman is watching. The press is waiting for you to make a mistake. Patton stands, gazes through the window. Outside, German civilians are clearing rubble, rebuilding, trying to create something from the ruins. 40 years I've served, Jensen. 40 years following orders, fighting wars, keeping my mouth shut when I disagreed with decisions. And where has it gotten us? We just spent 4 years defeating Germany, and now we're watching the Soviets take half of Europe. We won the war and lost the peace. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I saw what was coming. I warned them. I gave them a plan, and they said no because it was politically inconvenient. And I accepted that. I stayed quiet, like a good soldier. He turns from the observation point. Decision made. Maybe it's time to stop being a good soldier. September 22nd, 1945. 1400 hours. Press conference. 30 reporters. More than usual. Word has spread that Patton is becoming unpredictable, that he might say something newsworthy, something controversial. They're not wrong. Patton enters the room. No smile, no warmth, just a tired 60-year-old general who's fought one war too many. He doesn't wait for questions, starts talking immediately. Gentlemen, I've been asked to discuss denazification policy, the systematic removal of former Nazi Party members from positions of authority in occupied Germany. Pens ready, notebooks open. This should be straightforward, safe, official policy. I think it's the dumbest policy I've ever seen. Silence crashes over the room. Did he just say that, out loud, on the record? A reporter raises his hand. Patton ignores him, keeps talking. We're removing schoolteachers because they joined the Nazi Party in 1937. Engineers because they needed party membership to work. Administrators who kept cities running because they had a party card. And we're replacing them with nobody, because there's nobody else qualified. Another reporter, more insistent, General, are you saying we should employ Nazis? I'm saying this whole Nazi thing is just like a Democrat and Republican election fight back home. The moment the words leave his mouth, he knows, realizes, understands what he's just done. Every voice dies instantly. General, are you comparing Nazis to American political parties? Are you minimizing the Holocaust? Do you sympathize with Nazi ideology? Patton raises his hands, trying to explain, trying to clarify. That's not what I meant. I meant that most party members were opportunists, not ideologues. That we need to distinguish between the leaders who committed atrocities and the civilians who joined for practical reasons. But it's too late. The damage is done. The headline is written.
Patton compares Nazis to Democrats and Republicans.
The feeding frenzy has begun.
September 28, 1945. Bad Tolz, Patton's office.
Eisenhower arrives unannounced. Unusual. Supreme commanders don't just drop by subordinate headquarters. They summon, they demand presence, they maintain distance. But this is different. This is personal. Patton is at his desk when Eisenhower enters, doesn't stand, doesn't salute. Past that now. Past military courtesy. Past pretending this is just business. Hello, Ike. George. Eisenhower sits, uninvited. The friendship gives him that right. Or what's left of the friendship anyway. I'm here to relieve you of command of 3rd Army. Patton doesn't react. Expected this. Maybe even wanted it. At least it's honest. At least it's direct. Denazification comments? That's the official reason. The real reason is you've become a political liability. To me, to the army, to the occupation. Truman wants you gone. Marshall wants you gone. Frankly, George, you've made it impossible for anyone to defend you.
Have you tried?
The question hangs between them. Accusation, challenge, test of friendship. Eisenhower doesn't answer immediately. When he does, his voice is quiet, honest. No, I haven't tried, because I can't protect you from yourself. You knew those Nazi comments would cause a scandal. You said them anyway. You knew criticizing Soviet policy would anger Washington. You did it anyway. You knew proposing to rearm Germans would end your career. You proposed it anyway. Because it was true. All of it. The Soviets are enslaving Eastern Europe. We need German cooperation to rebuild, and removing every Nazi party member is administrative suicide. Truth doesn't matter if nobody's listening, and nobody's listening to you anymore, George. You've made yourself too controversial, too dangerous, too unpredictable. Patton stands, moves toward the glass, the same window where he spent 4 months watching his predictions come true, watching Eastern Europe fall, watching the Iron Curtain descend. When you're president, and you will be president, don't pretend otherwise, you'll remember this. You'll remember that you had a general who told you the truth, who saw what was coming, who gave you a solution, and you fired him because the truth was politically inconvenient. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but it's accurate. Eisenhower stands, approaches, tries one last time to reach the friend underneath the general. George, I'm offering you a position, 15th Army, administrative, peacetime command. You can finish your career with dignity, write your memoirs, retire with honor. 15th Army is a paper command, useless, meaningless. You're putting me in a closet and hoping I stay quiet. I'm trying to save your career. My career? Patton turns, eyes cold, voice colder. My career is watching millions of people enslaved while politicians pretend it's not happening. If that's my career, I don't want it. Then what do you want? I want to be right. I want history to record that someone saw this coming, that someone tried to stop it, and that people like you chose politics over principle. The words land like artillery. Direct hit. Eisenhower flinches. I'm sorry it has to be this way. No, you're not. You're relieved. Now you can move forward with your political career without me embarrassing you. Now you can be the statesman, the diplomat, the president, and I'll be the cautionary tale, the general who couldn't transition to peace, the warrior who didn't know when to stop fighting. Eisenhower extends his hand. Formal, final. Patton looks at it, doesn't take it. Get out of my office, Ike. George. I said get out. Eisenhower lowers his hand, turns, walks to the door, stops, looks back. For what it's worth, you were right. About the Soviets. About everything. I just couldn't do anything about it. You could have. You chose not to. There's a difference. The door closes. Eisenhower is gone. Patton stands alone in his office, relieved of command, career over, reputation destroyed. But right. God help him, he was right.
October 15th, 1945. 15th Army Headquarters, Bad Nauheim, Germany. Patton's new command, if you can call it that. 15th Army exists on paper only. No combat units, no real mission, just historians documenting the war, writing reports, creating official records, a tomb for a living general. Patton hates it, but he uses it, because 15th Army has access to all the intelligence files, all the after-action reports, all the documentation of what happened and what's happening now. He reads everything, 14 hours a day, building his case, creating his legacy, writing the report that will prove he was right. 400 pages become 600, then 800, every Soviet atrocity documented, every broken promise recorded, every prediction coming true, annotated with evidence. His new Chief of Staff, Colonel Paul Harkins, watches with concern. This isn't healthy, this obsession, this need to be vindicated. Sir, you should rest.
You've been working for 16 hours straight. Patton doesn't look up from the document he's reading. Soviet occupation of Poland. October 1945 update. Worse than September. Worse every month. Rest is for peacetime. That might arrive sooner than you think if you keep this pace. Good. Then I won't have to watch this disaster unfold. Harkins sits, knows better than to argue directly. Changes approach. Sir, what's the endgame here? You write this report, document everything, prove you were right. Then what? Who reads it? Who acts on it? Patton finally looks up. 60 years old, looks 70. The stress and anger and disappointment aging him faster than combat ever did. Nobody reads it. Not now. Maybe not for decades. But eventually. When the Cold War I predicted is in full swing. When Americans are dying to contain Soviet expansion. When people ask how it happened, how we let Eastern Europe fall, someone will find this report. And they'll know. Someone tried to warn them. That's cold comfort. It's the only comfort available. A knock at the door. Colonel Koch enters. He's been reassigned too. Following Patton to this administrative graveyard, loyalty has its costs. Sir, there's someone here to see you. Under-Secretary of War Patterson. Patton sits up. Robert Patterson, second most powerful man in the War Department. Direct line to Truman. This is either very good or very bad. Send him in. Patterson enters. Late 50s, lawyer, Republican, smart enough to recognize that military matters are bigger than politics, usually. General Patton, thank you for seeing me. Mr. Secretary, forgive me for not standing on ceremony. I'm not in a ceremonial mood. Patterson smiles, thin, understanding. I'm not here for ceremony. I'm here because I read your report, the one you sent to the Pentagon in May, the Soviet assessment. The one Truman ignored. Yes, that one. Patterson sits without being invited. They're past military protocol here, past rank. This is one man who sees clearly talking to another. Everything you predicted is happening. Poland, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, the occupation, the puppet governments, all of it. I know. I've been documenting it. May I see? Patton hesitates, then opens his desk, pulls out the latest version. 843 pages. Evidence, proof, vindication. Patterson reads, "Not everything, just samples, enough to understand scope and scale." When he looks up, his face is grave. This is remarkable, comprehensive, damning. Will it change anything? No. The word falls between them. Flat, final, honest. Truman has committed to cooperation with Stalin. Marshall has committed to diplomatic solutions. Eisenhower has committed to his political future. Nobody wants to admit you were right, because admitting you were right means admitting they were wrong. And the consequences of being wrong are too large to face.
So millions suffer. Yes. Patton takes the report back, all 800 pages. His life's work now, his legacy. "Why are you here, Mr. Secretary?" Patterson stands, moves toward the glass. The same view Patton has been staring at for weeks. German countryside, peaceful, quiet, hiding the storm gathering in the east. Because in 10 years, maybe 20, we're going to be in a war. Not hot, not traditional, but a war nonetheless, against the Soviet Union, for the future of Europe, of the world. And when that war is in full swing, when Americans are asking how we got here, I want there to be a record, your record, showing that someone saw it coming, that someone tried to stop it. Will that be enough? No, but it's all we have. He turns back to Patton. Keep writing, keep documenting, keep being right. History will vindicate you, just not soon enough to save the people you're trying to protect. Patterson leaves. The door closes. Patton is alone again. He returns to his desk, to his report, to his evidence. Keeps writing, because it's all he can do. December 6th, 1945. Bad Nauheim, Patton's office. 3 months since being relieved. 3 months of administrative duty. 3 months of watching from the sidelines while everything he warned about comes true. The report is finished. 917 pages. Complete documentation of Soviet actions from May to December 1945. Predictions for the next 50 years. Military assessments. Political analysis. Everything. His masterpiece. His legacy. His proof. Patterson is here to receive it. Final copy. Official submission to the War Department. "This is everything?" Patterson asks. Everything. Soviet atrocities, broken promises, territorial expansion, political repression, and predictions. Specific predictions about what's coming next. Patterson opens to a random page. Reads, "You predict the Soviets will blockade Berlin within 3 years." Correct. They want the Western powers out. A blockade is the logical pressure point. You predict they'll have atomic weapons by 1949. Their espionage network is extensive. They've been stealing our research since the Manhattan Project began. 1949 is optimistic. Might be 1948. You predict a war in Korea by 1950. Kim Il-sung is meeting with Stalin regularly. The North is being armed. The South is weak. Stalin will test American resolve in Asia. Korea is the obvious target. Patterson closes the report, looks at Patton with something like awe. "If you're right about any of this, I'm right about all of it. I've been right about everything since May. Why would I suddenly be wrong now?" "Then we're making a catastrophic mistake." "Yes." "And nobody will listen." "No." Patterson stands, takes the report, holds it like it's precious, dangerous, both. "I'll submit this to the Secretary, to Marshall, to anyone who'll read it. But General, you need to understand, this will gather dust. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to believe it. And by the time they're ready to listen, it will be too late." "I know." "Then why write it?" Patton stands, looks Patterson in the eye, 60 years old, tired, disappointed, but still fighting. "Because someone has to tell the truth, even if nobody wants to hear it. Especially if nobody wants to hear it. That's what soldiers do. We see the enemy, we identify the threat, we sound the alarm. And if politicians ignore us, at least history will know we tried." Patterson nods, understands, respects it even if he can't act on it. "What will you do now?" "I'm going hunting tomorrow.
Pheasant, with my chief of staff. Take a day away from this. Clear my head. That sounds good. You deserve a break. They shake hands. Formal. Final. Two men who see the future and are powerless to change it. After Patterson leaves, Patton sits at his desk. Empty now. The report gone. His life's work submitted to bureaucrats who will file it away and forget it. He opens his drawer.
Pulls out a letter. Already written, sealed, addressed to Beatrice. His last letter, just in case. Because he's 60 years old and he's made a lot of enemies, and sometimes accidents happen to people who know too much. He puts it back in the drawer, locks it. Tomorrow he'll go hunting. Tomorrow he'll take a break. Tomorrow. December 9th, 1945. 10:45 hours. Mannheim Kaffertal, Germany. The staff car is a Cadillac, big, comfortable, olive drab paint, red plate with 4 stars. Patton's car. Everyone knows it. He's in the back seat. Chief of Staff Major General Hobart Gay beside him. They're going hunting. Pheasant in the countryside outside Mannheim. A break, a rest. One day of normalcy before returning to the administrative graveyard of 15th Army. The driver is PFC Horace Woodring, 22 years old, good driver, reliable, been with Patton for 6 months. Traffic is light. Sunday morning. Most people are in church or sleeping off Saturday night celebrations. The road is straight, visibility good, no weather concerns. At 11:50 hours they approach a railroad crossing. Green light, clear passage, routine. A truck pulls out from a side road. Army deuce and a half, standard cargo truck. Driven by Private Robert Thompson. No record of why he's there. No orders placing him in that location. The truck doesn't stop, doesn't slow, doesn't swerve, drives directly into the path of Patton's car. Woodring sees it, too late, hits the brakes, no time. Physics takes over. Metal meets metal. The sound echoes across the countryside, sharp, final, the sound of history changing direction. In the back seat, Patton is thrown forward. His head hits the glass partition between front and back. Neck snaps. Spine severs at the 3rd and 4th cervical vertebrae. Gay is thrown sideways, bruised, shaken, but alive, able to move. Patton cannot move, cannot feel his legs, his arms, his body, paralyzed from the neck down. Gay realizes immediately, has seen enough combat injuries, knows what a severed spine looks like. George, can you hear me? Patton's eyes are open, conscious, aware, the mind untouched, the body destroyed. I'm paralyzed, Hap. His voice is calm, eerily calm, like he expected this, like he knew. Don't move, we'll get you to a hospital. You'll be fine. I won't be fine. I'll never be fine. This is it. Soldiers are gathering. Someone ran to get help, medics coming, ambulance on the way. Private Thompson stands beside his truck, uninjured, staring at the wreckage, his face blank, empty, like he's not really processing what just happened. Later, he'll give a statement, says he didn't see the car, says it was an accident, says he's sorry. 24 hours later, he'll disappear. Transfer orders that don't exist, reassignment that can't be verified, gone, like he was never there. The ambulance arrives. Medics stabilize Patton, move him carefully, gently, knowing that one wrong move could sever what little connection remains between brain and body. Gay rides with him, holds his hand, the hand that can't feel the grip. Stay with me, George. I'm not going anywhere, Hap. That's the problem. I'm not going anywhere ever again. They transport him to the 131st Station Hospital in Heidelberg, best American medical facility in Germany. Doctors examine him, x-rays, tests, consultations. The prognosis is unanimous, complete paralysis from the neck down, irreversible, permanent. He will never walk again, never fight again, never command again. The warrior is finished, but the mind remains, sharp, clear, aware of everything, including the timing. 3 days after submitting his report, 3 days after documenting everything, 3 days after becoming the most dangerous truth-teller in Europe.
Patton lies in his hospital bed, paralyzed, helpless, trapped in a body that no longer obeys, and thinks about timing, about coincidence, about how convenient this is for people who wanted him silenced. He can't prove anything, won't ever be able to prove anything. But he knows, the way soldiers know when they're being targeted, when they're in crosshairs, when someone wants them dead. He knows, and there's nothing he can do about it, except wait.
Wait to see if his predictions come true. Wait to see if history vindicates him. Wait to die. Because that's all that's left now. Waiting.
December 15th, 1945. Heidelberg Hospital, room 202. Beatrice arrives. Flown from Boston, emergency transport. 6 days to get here. 6 days of fear and hope and prayer. She enters the room, sees her husband, 60 years old, paralyzed, dying slowly. 35 years of marriage, through peace and war, through triumph and scandal, through everything. This is the hardest part. She sits beside the bed, takes his hand, the hand that can't squeeze back. "Hello, George." "Hello, Beat." His voice is weak, breathing is difficult. The paralysis is affecting everything, including the muscles that control respiration. The doctors say he might live years, might adapt, might survive. Patton knows better, can feel his body shutting down, systems failing one by one, time measured in days, not years. "You came." "Of course I came. Where else would I be?" "Boston, with the children, away from this. This is where I belong, with you." They sit in silence.
What is there to say?
Everything and nothing. 35 years compressed into whatever time remains. Finally, Beatrice speaks. "The accident. Do you think—" Don't ask that question. Don't go down that road. It doesn't matter if it was an accident or something else. The result is the same. But if someone, then they've won, and there's nothing we can do about it. But Beat, I need you to do something for me. Anything. The report, the one Patterson took, it's at the War Department now, filed away, forgotten. But there are copies, in my office, in my desk. I need you to keep them safe. And when the time is right, when everything I predicted comes true, I need you to make sure people see them. When will the time be right? 5 years, 10 years, when Poland is crushed, when Czechoslovakia falls, when the Iron Curtain is complete, when Americans are dying to contain Soviet expansion. Then people will be ready to hear that someone tried to warn them.
Beatrice nods, understanding, accepting the mission, the last mission he'll ever give.
"I promise." "Good. That's all I need. The truth preserved, the record maintained. Proof that someone saw clearly when everyone else chose blindness." He closes his eyes, tired, so tired. The paralysis is exhausting, fighting to breathe, to live, to maintain consciousness. "George, don't leave me." "I'm not leaving. I'm being taken. There's a difference." "I'm not ready." "Neither am I, but we don't get to choose. We never did." She stays, holding his hand, watching him breathe, counting each breath, knowing each one might be the last. Outside, winter is coming, cold, dark, the first peacetime winter in 6 years. But peace is an illusion. Patton knows it. Soon, everyone will know it. The war is just beginning, and he won't be there to fight it.
December 21st, 1945, 1750 hours, Heidelberg Hospital. 12 days since the accident, 12 days of paralysis, 12 days of waiting to die. Patton's breathing is labored, shallow. The doctors say pulmonary embolism, blood clot traveling to the lungs, common complication of paralysis, nothing they can do. Beatrice is beside him, has been beside him for 6 days straight, sleeping in a chair, eating when nurses force her, refusing to leave. "Beat, I'm here. I suppose this is it." "Don't say that." "Why not? It's true. I can feel it. The body knows, always does." His eyes are clear. Despite the pain, despite the dying, the mind remains sharp to the end. "The predictions, the report, you'll remember." "I'll remember."
Poland, Czechoslovakia, Berlin blockade 1948, Soviet atomic bomb 1949, Korea 1950, Cold War lasting 40 to 50 years. When it all comes true, when they can't deny it anymore, show them. Make sure they know someone tried to warn them. I will.
Good, that's good. That's all that matters now.
He closes his eyes, breathes, each breath harder than the last. George S. Patton, Jr. 60 years, 40 years in the army, 3 wars, and I die in a car accident. Of all the stupid, meaningless ways to go. It wasn't meaningless, you were right, about everything. Being right doesn't save anyone. I was right and Poland still fell. Right and Czechoslovakia still fell. Right and millions will still die. What good is being right if you can't stop what's wrong? You tried. That's more than most people do. One last breath, deeper, final. Make sure. They remember. I told them so. The breath releases, doesn't return. Beatrice sits beside her husband's body. The general, the warrior, the prophet nobody wanted to hear. Dead at 60 years, 40 days. Right about everything. Too late to matter. December 22nd, 1945. 0600 hours. Heidelberg Hospital.
Eisenhower arrives the morning after Patton's death. Too late. Always too late. He stands beside the covered body. Alone. Sent everyone away. This is private. Personal. He pulls back the sheet. Looks at Patton's face. Peaceful now. The anger gone. The fight over. You were right, George. The words come out as a whisper. Confession to a dead man who can't hear. Who doesn't need to hear. Who knew all along. About everything. The Soviets. Eastern Europe. The 6-week window. All of it. He covers the face again. Can't look anymore. I chose my career over your truth. And millions will pay for that choice. I know it. God help me, I know it. A nurse enters, stops when she sees him. The Supreme Commander, crying. She leaves quietly. Some grief is too private for witnesses. Eisenhower composes himself, wipes his eyes, returns the mask. The general, the diplomat, the future president. But alone, in this room, with this body, he allows himself one moment of truth. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough.
He leaves, returns to command, to politics, to the career he chose over principle. But he'll remember this moment, every day, for the rest of his life, just like Patton said he would. December 24th, 1945, Luxembourg American Cemetery. 5,000 graves. American soldiers who died liberating Europe. Now Patton joins them. The funeral is military. Full honors, flags, bugles, 21 guns. Generals and politicians in attendance. Eisenhower, Marshall, Bradley. Paying respects to the man they silenced. The irony is not lost on anyone. Beatrice refuses to bury him at West Point, the place of honor for generals, the place his rank deserves. He wanted to be with his men, she tells the funeral director. So they bury him here, among the soldiers of Third Army, the men he led, the men who died under his command, the men who believed in him. A simple white cross, like all the others. No special treatment, no elevated status. George S. Patton, Jr., General, U.S. Army, California, November 11th, 1885 to December 21st, 1945. Eisenhower stands at the grave after everyone else has left, looking down at the white cross, at the name, at the dates. 60 years. Not enough time. Not nearly enough time. I'll be President, George, just like you said, and every day I'll remember this. Every day I'll know what I chose, and what it cost. He salutes, holds it, lowers his hand, walks away, leaving Patton among his soldiers, where he belongs. January 1985, Washington, D.C., National Archives. 40 years after Patton's death,
Classified documents are released. Routine declassification. 20-year rule extended to 40 for sensitive materials. Among them, OSS files, Office of Strategic Services, precursor to the CIA. A researcher finds a folder, tab marked Patton, George S., Surveillance and Contingency. Inside, surveillance logs. From May 1945 through December 1945, every phone call monitored, every letter read, every meeting observed, and a memo, dated December 3, 1945, 6 days before the accident. Subject: Patton problem, resolution options. Summary: subject continues to gather evidence regarding Soviet actions, has submitted comprehensive report to War Department. Report contains predictions that, if accurate, will prove politically embarrassing to current administration. Subject shows no signs of ceasing activity. Options: 1. Continued surveillance. 2. Forced retirement. 3. Medical leave, psychiatric evaluation. 4. Permanent solution. Option 4 has been circled. Below, handwritten note. Thompson briefed. Asset in position. Timing opportunistic. The researcher stares at the document, hands shaking. Private Robert Thompson, the truck driver, the man who disappeared 24 hours after the accident. Asset in position. Permanent solution. The researcher makes copies, brings them to her supervisor. The supervisor brings them to the director. The director brings them to Congress. Congressional hearings follow. Inconclusive. No smoking gun. Just implications, suggestions, possibilities. The official finding: insufficient evidence to prove assassination. The unofficial truth: Patton was right to be paranoid. They did want him silenced. Whether they succeeded through action or merely benefited from coincidence, the result was the same. The prophet was silenced, the warning was ignored, and 40 years later, the price was still being paid. 1946 to 1950. Everything begins. June 1946. Poland. The democratic government is overthrown. Soviet puppet regime installed. The 16 Home Army leaders, all dead. Executed or worked to death in gulags. Patton predicted this. May 1945, page 47 of his report. February 1948. Czechoslovakia, communist coup. Foreign Minister Jan Masaryk falls from a window. Ruled suicide. Nobody believes it. Democratic government destroyed overnight. Patton predicted this. Page 89 of his report. August 29, 1949. Kazakhstan. Soviet Union tests its first atomic bomb. First lightning. American intelligence is shocked. Estimated the Soviets wouldn't have the bomb until 1952 at the earliest. Patton predicted 1949. Page 134 of his report. Exact year. June 25, 1950. Korea. North Korean forces cross the 38th parallel. Full-scale invasion. The Korean War begins. 3 years of fighting. 36,574 American dead. Hundreds of thousands of Korean casualties. Patton predicted this. Page 201 of his report. Korea by 1950. General Douglas MacArthur, commanding UN forces in Korea, reads Patton's report. Obtained through back channels. Classified but circulating among senior officers. He writes in his diary, "Patton told us, 5 years ago, everything, and we called him a warmonger. Now American boys are dying for our cowardice." MacArthur will face his own reckoning with Truman, wants to expand the war into China, wants to use atomic weapons, wants to win. Truman relieves him. April 1951. Just like Patton. Another general who saw clearly. Another general silenced for being right. 1961. The Wall. August 13th, 1961. Berlin. Soviet forces begin construction. Barbed wire first, then concrete. Dividing the city, dividing Germany, dividing Europe. The Berlin Wall, symbol of everything Patton warned about. Physical manifestation of the Iron Curtain Churchill described. Proof
that the division of Europe is permanent. Former President Eisenhower watches on television, retired now, living in Gettysburg, writing memoirs. He's 70 years old, looks older, the weight of history visible on his face. He picks up the phone, calls his former aide, asks for something from the archives, a specific document. 3 days later, it arrives. Patton's report, the one from May 1945, all 917 pages. Eisenhower reads it. Again, for the first time since 1945, every prediction, true, every warning, ignored, every consequence, realized. He writes in his diary that night, the entry will be discovered after his death. Watch them build the wall today.
Patton told me this would happen. Told me in May 1945, 16 years ago. I didn't listen. I chose politics over truth. I chose my career over millions of lives. History will judge me for many things, but my greatest failure was not having the courage to support George Patton when he was right and I was wrong. God forgive me. Eisenhower will die March 28, 1969, age 78. Never publicly admits Patton was right, but privately carries the guilt until his last breath. 1989 to 1991. The End. November 9th, 1989. Berlin. The wall falls. 44 years after Patton's warning, 28 years after its construction, the symbol of division comes down. Germans from east and west embrace, cry, celebrate, freedom after decades of separation. Former President Ronald Reagan watches from California, retired now, but this is his victory too. Peace through strength, Reagan's doctrine, Patton's doctrine, military build-up, confrontation, refusing to accept Soviet domination as permanent. Reagan had read Patton's report, 1981, first year in office. Someone in the Pentagon sent it to him, marked, "This is what we should have done in 1945. Reagan built his Soviet policy around it, not containment, victory. December 26, 1991. Moscow. The Soviet Union officially dissolves. 15 republics become independent nations. The hammer and sickle comes down for the last time. The Cold War is over. 45 years after it began. 45 years of proxy wars, arms races, nuclear terror, millions dead. Exactly what Patton predicted. Cold War lasting 40 to 50 years. Exactly what he tried to prevent. The cost. The accounting is brutal. Deaths under communism, 1945 to 1991. 100+ million worldwide. Cold War military spending, $8 trillion, US alone. American combat deaths, Korea, Vietnam, other conflicts, 95,000+. Eastern European deaths, political repression, labor camps, 1+ million. Lives destroyed, families separated, decades lost, incalculable. Versus Patton's plan, 1945. Estimated casualties, 100,000 to 150,000. Duration, 6 to 8 weeks. Cost, $10 to $15 billion. Outcome, Eastern Europe free. Soviet expansion halted. No Cold War. 100 million lives versus 100,000. 45 years versus 6 weeks. $8 trillion versus 10 billion. The mathematics are undeniable. The moral calculation is more complex. But the historical fact remains, Patton was right. 2014 to 2024. History repeats. February 2014. Russia annexes Crimea. Western powers protest. Sanctions imposed. No military action. Containment. Diplomacy. Hoping for the best. Sound familiar? February 2022. Russia invades Ukraine. Full-scale war. Tens of thousands dead. Millions displaced. The same question arises. Should we have acted in 2014, when Putin was testing, when the cost would have been lower? The same debate Patton had in 1945. Confront threats when vulnerable, or manage them when dangerous? China and Taiwan, same question.
different actors. North Korea, Iran. The threats change, the dilemma remains. When do you confront? When do you contain? When is the cost of action less than the cost of inaction? Patton had an answer. Clear, definitive, unpopular. We chose differently. We're still paying for that choice.
The Legacy Luxembourg American Cemetery. Present day. Visitors still come to see the graves, to honor the fallen, to remember. Among 5,000 white crosses, they stop at one. George S. Patton, Jr. They leave notes, flowers, tokens of respect. One note, recent. "You were right, General. Wish we'd listened." Another. "The prophet they silenced, the truth they ignored." Another. "Everything you predicted came true. God help us for not believing you." Patton's report is now available online, declassified, digitized, accessible to anyone. Students study it, historians analyze it, military academies teach it. The title they gave it, "The Warning That Could Have Saved the World." Because that's what it was, a warning, clear, documented, accurate, ignored by politics, vindicated by history. Too late to matter. The lesson. The story of George S. Patton and his warning about the Soviet Union isn't just history, it's a lesson, timeless, relevant, urgent. When prophets speak truth to power, listen. When military leaders identify threats, investigate. When the politically impossible is strategically necessary, reconsider what's possible. When short-term political cost conflicts with long-term human cost, choose humanity. Patton gave us a blueprint. We chose not to follow it. 100 million people paid the price. The next Patton is speaking today, about China, about Russia, about threats we don't want to face. Are we listening? Or are we making the same mistake, choosing political convenience over hard truth, choosing careers over consequences, choosing silence over salvation? History will record our choice, just as it recorded theirs. The question is, what will it say? That we learned, or that we repeated? That we listened to our prophets, or silenced them again? 60 years, 40 days, that's all Patton got. But his voice echoes still, warning us, challenging us, asking us, will you have the courage we lacked? Will you act when action matters? Or will you wait until it's too late? The choice is ours. The consequences are forever. Choose wisely.